Good afternoon. Pleasure to be with all of you. It's an exciting day for us. For those of you who don't know the people at the table, let me introduce them, please. To my immediately left, to my far left, is Veronique Hakem, referred to as Ronnie Hakem, who's the managing director of the MTA. Eric Gertler, who among his many hats is wearing two today. Eric is on the board of the Empire State Development Corporation and is on the board of Technion Institute, which we'll be visiting in Israel. Howard Zemsky was going to be on this trip. He's the president of Empire State Development Corporation. He had a death in the family, so he's not going to be joining us. To my right, David Yaski, who is the policy director for the state, and will be joining us on the trip. The focus of our trip really has two messages. Number one, New York is open for business. Israel is a very important business partner to the state of New York. We've been working on trade with Israel for a number of years. This is not our first trip. The numbers are shocking, the economic impact numbers with Israel. New York does $5 billion in exports to Israel, more than any other state in the United States. Israel exports to New York over $8 billion more than any other state. So the economic synergy between New York and Israel is very, very important. We're going to be focusing on four industries. Number one, tech startups and how we can work together on incubators for tech startups. As you know, Israel is very big in the tech sector and very big on startup tech companies. How can we partner on incubators for tech startups? Second, the drone industry, drone technology, which is cutting edge. I believe it's going to be explosive in terms of economic potential going forward. We have a big investment in that in the state of New York, both from an R&D point of view, and also it's a big economic engine for central New York, where we have a drone corridor, one of the first in the United States, for drone development and testing. So we'll be working with Israeli companies on that. Third, biotech and healthcare. We will have a representative from Roswell Center, which is one of the leading cancer institutes in the United States, located in Buffalo, New York. Candace Johnson will be with us in Israel, as well as representatives from Northwell, which is, Northwell is the leading, in terms of size, healthcare company on Long Island and has a tremendous presence all through downstate. And fourth, technology in terms of applications for navigational systems for the MTA. You have tremendous growth in navigational systems among technology companies, software companies. They're being installed in cars, trucks. They're talking about all sorts of applications for navigational devices, self-driving cars. You can now get in a car and it can drive you to the Hamptons. Great. If you're doing all this development in terms of navigational systems, why don't these companies think about an application for train and rail? I think, I'm not an engineer, but there are actually fewer variables when you talk about a train system than when you talk about an automobile navigation system. You don't have passengers who are going to walk out. You don't have other cars with crazy drivers who are going to be cutting you off. So why don't we try to get other technology companies to think about this application for their software, not as an act of charity, but as an economic activity? MTA will wind up spending billions of dollars on navigational devices. And right now you have very few companies that basically have a monopoly on the rail system, not just in New York, but in the United States of America. So those will be the four areas that we will be talking about. We have a conference at Technion Institute. For those of you who are not familiar, Technion is the partner to Cornell Technion on Roosevelt Island. And again, it is the leading tech institute in Israel. Second message is a message of solidarity. We have 1.75 Jewish people in New York. We have more Jewish people in New York than any place outside of Israel. And it's well known that there has been a scourge of anti-Semitic activity in this country, a scourge of anti-Semitism. I believe it is a symptom of the division that is being spread throughout this country and the intolerance that is spreading throughout this country. But we've had horrific acts of anti-Semitism. The killings in the San Diego synagogue and the Pittsburgh synagogue were just appalling, not just across this country, but literally internationally. I mean, just imagine what the people in Israel were thinking when they saw those pictures and they learned those facts. I wish I could say, as governor of New York, that we have been immune. We have not. NYPD estimates an 83% increase in anti-Semitic activity in New York City. 83%. I mean, it is just revolting, frankly. And it's not just New York City. We've seen it all across the state of New York. And it is deeply distressing. And I want the people of Israel to know that it is personally offensive to me, not as governor of New York, not in my professional official capacity. As a New Yorker, it is personally offensive and personally repugnant, and that all New Yorkers are outraged at this rash of anti-Semitism. And I believe I speak for all New Yorkers in that regard. The Jewish community is part of the New York family. It's part of our culture. It's part of our history. Without the Jewish community, New York is not New York. They are intrinsic to who we are and what we are. And all New Yorkers, I'm a native New Yorker, but we grew up with the Jewish community. It is part of who we are. Part of my socialization, my upbringing, is my association with the Jewish community. I have two brothers-in-law who are Jewish. My brother-in-law Kenneth and Howard, and my nieces. This is personal, and I take it personally. And I want everyone to know that anti-Semitism has no place in New York State. We have no tolerance for it. We will prosecute it wherever we find it. These are hate crimes. We are also providing security in an unprecedented way, $25 million in security to religiously affiliated centers, institutes, etc. And we will just not allow it to exist. And it is contrary to who we are and what we believe. And it is appalling to all New Yorkers. And I want them to know that personally. And I'm going to bring my daughters on this trip, first time, because it does have that personal element for me. And it has that personal element for my daughters also. And as I said, the Jewish community is part of our family, and part of our family has been offended. And my family is going to go to Israel to make the point that we stand in solidarity with them. With that, let me turn it over to Eric Gertler, who will make some comments, and then we'll go from there.
Great. Thank you very much, Governor. It's a pleasure to be here, and I also want to thank you, Governor, for planning what I think is a very important trip to Israel. And I must also say, on a personal note, it's a great privilege to join you on this trip. Under the Governor's leadership, New York's economy is a thriving economy, and I'm not just talking about New York City. I've seen from my position as a board member of the Empire State Development Corporation how the governor has focused on strengthening regional economies across the state, from Buffalo to Rochester to Syracuse and to Long Island. And as the governor pointed out, I'm also a board member of Technion, and I can tell you firsthand the need for global synergy and collaboration in our marketplace. And this is not just in the private sector, but also in the public sector to drive change, to spur innovation, and also to establish best practices. New York's innovation economy builds on the R&D from the wealth of our top-tier, both private and public universities, and from our sizable STEM talent to fuel entrepreneurial startups and businesses focused on industries including tech and venture capital, life sciences, photonics, and both clean and renewable energy. We are truly the center, the global center, of technology-driven innovation. And again, I don't just mean New York City. The innovation economy extends throughout the state. And the numbers confirm this approach to economic development. New York State has the highest number of private sector jobs in state history and record low unemployment. On this trip, I look forward to further showcasing this great work, as well as what the Empire State Development Corporation does to accelerate economic progress and more jobs in this state. Contributing to this success has been New York's and Israel's storied history as a global trading partner that has strengthened our respective business communities. New York is the top state for exports to Israel, more than double that of California, I might add, and Israel consistently ranks among the top 5 export markets for New York State products. As the governor pointed out, more than 36% of all exports from the United States to Israel, roughly $5 billion annually, comes from New York. We've helped to incubate Israeli startups and supported them through the state's incentive programs. Our trip to Israel will build on this progress and help to identify new opportunities with Israeli businesses that will strengthen our economic development agenda in New York State. We will look at what Israel is doing when it comes to healthcare, transportation, mobility, financial, and green technology, and we will see if there are ways to bring global entrepreneurs, companies, and academics to test, develop, and validate their innovative ideas in New York State. I think it's an exciting prospect. When I think about both the tech and non-tech businesses in New York State, and I think about the emerging businesses in Israel, this is the classic case of 1 + 1 = 3. With the governor, I look forward to meeting with leaders of Israel's thriving business community and furthering the economic ties between this great state and a great nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Eric. And I want to thank Mr. Gertler again for his courtesy and his good service to the state, both as an Empire State Development Board member and for taking the time to come with us. His connection with Technion Institute as a board member has been invaluable, so I want to thank him very much.
Thank you.
With that, let me turn it over to Ronnie Hakem, Managing Director of the MTA.
Thank you. And thank you, Governor Cuomo, for spearheading what I think is going to be a very important and potentially historic trip for the MTA. Everyone knows that the MTA faces incredible challenges. We have a 100-year-old system. We're serving historic volumes of customers. We run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But challenges are not enough to keep us down. This is a new day at the MTA, and we're shaking things up to make real and lasting change. We've been seeing tangible results from the Subway Action Plan. It's been a shot in the arm to our transit system and has allowed us to stabilize service for our customers. The legislature recently passed Governor Cuomo's MTA management reforms, together with new funding streams that are setting the agency on new paths. And at the governor's urging, we're throwing out old ways of thinking and we're identifying new technology and methods to get rehabilitation work done smarter and faster. In January, you may recall, the governor impaneled engineering experts from Cornell and Columbia who recommended a new approach to the L-Train Rehabilitation Project, which embraced innovative technologies, and most significantly prevented a complete shutdown of the Canarsie Tunnel and the L subway line. Just this week, our independent consultant announced to the board that the project is trending ahead of schedule, so it's going quite well. Now, the MTA has a historic opportunity to build on this success. We're about to embark on a massive, new, and important capital program, and we need to make sure that we are using the best and most efficient technology available to seize on those important investments. It's also crucial that we bar bad contractors and seek new bidders for MTA capital projects. For too long, to use the governor's expression, the transportation industrial complex has relied on the same contractors, and it has demonstrated limited competition. So this trip is important on that front. It's an important opportunity to open the door to new relationships for us at the MTA, for us to seek new technology on signal and navigation systems, and encourage competition for MTA projects moving forward. Israel has made noteworthy advancements in navigational and transportation technology, as the governor noted, and I'm hopeful this trip will help us identify new methods that we can apply to our mass transit system and new partners to ensure that it can support a 21st century ridership. Again, thank you, Governor, for inviting me on this trip, and I look forward to continue to work with you to create the transit system that New Yorkers deserve. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ronnie. And Mr. David Yaski, who's been a great addition to the state. He's the policy director for the state. We're lucky to have him, and we're lucky to have him in time for this trip. David Yaski.
Well, thank you very much, Governor, and thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for convening this trip to Israel that is sure to yield important economic development opportunities for the state, and thank you as well for your powerful statement. New York, of course, is a thriving global center for tech startups and innovation, really the global center, and so is Israel among the leaders. Developing an even stronger economic relationship between the two will benefit both, enabling best practices and new technologies to spread even faster, and leveraging our mutual strengths. Now, New York's economic strengths are numerous, and because so many are so well known, it is doubly important to promote opportunities that are not as obvious. And the governor covered some of this, that, for example, production of drones and unmanned aircraft systems is a rapidly growing part of the tech sector. Virtually every industry is using them to improve operations, from precision agriculture to film and TV production to inventory management to weather prediction. Drones have proved extremely useful in disaster response. We will soon see smart cities deploying them for congestion management and other real-time data uses, and many think they will be integral for autonomous vehicle navigation. New York is well positioned to take advantage of this growth, thanks to the work that the governor has done in upstate revitalization. This administration has invested $300 million to create a 50-mile-long drone testing corridor, as the governor mentioned, between Syracuse and Rome in central New York, the most advanced corridor in the nation. Our Genius New York program, based in Syracuse, is the world's largest unmanned aircraft systems business competition. This infrastructure has already attracted competitors from around the world, and by 2025, the industry is expected to include over 3,300 jobs here in New York State. Now, Israel is also a leading player in the commercial drone sector. Many of the fastest growing drone companies are based there. Venture capital investment in those companies has grown by 40% over the last 2 years. In fact, one of those companies, Civdrone, is already operating here and was awarded a $500,000 investment through Genius New York. We see great potential for more synergies like this. The same is true for healthcare. New York's world-class academic medical centers are already working with life sciences entrepreneurs in Israel. The governor mentioned just a couple of them, and we hope to accelerate those collaborations with this trip. I look forward to the next 2 days, what it will yield for New York and our special partnership with Israel. Thank you again, Governor, for leading this initiative.
Thank you.